Hello, people of YouTube. This is Read Astray, and I've been wanting to join the book side of the internet for a long time, but I often feared that I wouldn't have anything interesting to add to the conversation for the partial fact that I read for fun and I'm not really a trained scholar. There's plenty of channels that I love to watch and kind of look up to, like Quinn's Ideas, who handles the sci-fi genre, Anda Kent and Jules Dapper, who handle the horror side. You've got A Really Sarcastic Productions, who handles classics and mythologies. Even ones as like Jack Edwards, who is an actual book critic and occasionally handles British classics. And there's many other channels that I love. I'll link all of them in the description if any of you are interested in my personal favorites. I haven't been reading long, and of course as a kid I read tons and tons of books. I think like my record back then was 3 books in a single week. I could not do that today. Maybe 3 books in a month, but definitely not in a week. Even then, at some point in my teens, pre-teens, early teens, I kind of lost my steam for reading, and I switched to primarily reading fan fiction, which I stuck with for roughly 8 years. That's a long time, and so I'm finally getting back into reading house-published books for about a year and a half, I'd say. So not too long, but despite that, I've got a lot to say and a lot that I want to share. Late this summer of 2024, I inherited part of a personal library from a distant relative, and that finally sparked the idea of what I wanted my book channel to be, where I wanted to go with it. Most of the books that I feature on this channel will be the ones I have inherited. Then of course they'll run out eventually, and even after that I have like a list of plans of how I will continue afterwards. A lot of these books that this family member owned were secondhand. Some of them are in better condition than others, but I am moving soon, so I will have to do an unhaul. So that's part of why I'm making this specific video. I kind of want to turn the unhaul into content as well. So I don't want to go into spoilers for future videos I have planned, but what you can expect is videos about books on serious topics, maybe some that are lighthearted. I want to cover authors and their stories if I can. I have a few books from authors that aren't very well known. I kind of want to bring it to the light. One of the many series of books that I quote-unquote inherited is a series of romance novels, and so today I see, especially on things like Book Talk and BookTube, there's the conversation of how romance books are ruined and they're all awful with the things that they discuss in these, their topics. Editing me cutting in here. I was tired when I first recorded this. I should probably redo it, but in total, this is like the 3rd time I've recorded the entire video, and I don't want to do it again. This is the first video, it's not that important. What I was trying to say here is that in a lot of the discourse online, there's no, these books are fine, these romance genres, they're not controversial at all. And then there's the other side that say they're ruining people's minds, they're ruining people's perceptions of relationships. All romance books are horrible now. And what I meant to say is that the books that I have were printed in the 80s and 90s. And now granted, that's not a too long of a time, but what I discovered is that everything we're having issues with books today, they've been present at least since the 80s and 90s. It's not like a very recent occurrence of dark romance. Like, I have one that I plan to discuss. It was Colleen Hoover before Colleen Hoover. That's how I'll describe it. So back to... And something I have discovered is that the romance genre hasn't actually changed all that much, which I found very interesting. And I would love to go into a more in-depth video about that, so that's one you can expect in the future. I have stuff like I want to discuss Michael Crichton and several of his books. I'm currently reading one right now. I think this one will be my first video. Now, I do have one script entirely written, but it does cover a heavy topic, and so I feel it wouldn't be a best first video to start off with, so I'm starting off with a Michael Crichton book instead. There's some books I'd love to cover that were never translated into English, and so, I mean, English is my first and only language, but I came across those books while going through the author that I mentioned, so that the script that I have fully done. Some of his books were never translated into English, and so I thought it'd be interesting if I could do that myself and introduce them to an English audience. Not for the fact I believe his books need to be introduced to a new audience. I discussed that when we get there, we'll get there and you'll see why. But I think it needs to be talked about. One of the books that I thought was interesting I have is called The Shelters of Stone. Now, I did not realize this was part of a series. A six-part series. Now, the book that the series is called Earth's Children, and the book that I have is about 800 pages long, and I looked at the rest of the books, they seem to be just as long, so while I'd love to cover this series, there's plenty of other channels that have covered it in depth, and so this will be one that I will have to unhaul, but I read some of the Wikipedia on it. It's a very interesting series, but considering my huge list of stuff to get through, realistically, it's just not one that I will be able to tackle. That's just a few examples of stuff that I will go through on this channel. The rest of my plans I'm keeping secret because, I mean, y'all have to have something to come back to, right? So, this is Read Astray. I might come up with a better pseudonym for y'all to call me by. I'm not too fond of using my real name. Consequences of being a free-range internet kid during the early 2000s and the 2010s. But, I know, pretty awkward intro. I'll get better, more confident as time gets on. So, I hope you'll stay tuned, and thank you for watching.